and welcome to this first edition, the inaugural edition of Courtside Chats with our three guests today: Harry Schroeder, Neal Bradley of Murray State, and Jim Benson of Illinois State. I'm Mike Kern with the Missouri Valley Conference. And to get us started, let's each have a brief introduction of yourself, and then I'm going to turn it over to Harry to kind of drive the ship a little bit. And Harry, we'll start off with you. Tell the fans who you are.
Hi. I host a website called valleyhoopsinsider.com. Also write for some other websites at times, announce a game here or there for the Valley as well. Longtime reporter in the Valley, 20 plus years of being around the league, announcing games, writing stories, and just happy to be a part of the podcast, Mike. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, I'm Jim Benson with the Bloomington Pantagraph newspaper. In my 18th year, I think it is, covering Illinois State. Started Porter Moser's last year with the Redbirds. Was my first year with the Redbirds, so I've seen a couple of coaches kind of come and go through Illinois State, and I've worked at the Pantagraph for 41 years. That's my story.
Well, congratulations on the run.
Yeah,
and Neal, welcome to the Missouri Valley. Neal, of course, Murray State's broadcaster. Tell us how long you've been there, and tell us a little bit about your coach's tenures that you've had there.
All right, 32nd year for me, and it's easy for me to remember when I started. I was with Scott Edgar's first season. So from Scott, and there's Tevester Anderson in there, Mick Cronin, of course, Mark Gottfried, and all the way to Matt McMahon, Steve Fromm. So we've had a really good run of coaches, but it's been a lot of fun for the 32 years. It's amazing how it flies by. I thought I was an old timer, and then you get together with some of the other broadcasters in the league. I don't even think I'm in the top five. So it's obvious. And the gentleman from Bradley, we were discussing last night, he said, "Isn't this great that we get to do this?" And I fully agree. It is just it's a dream come true for sure.
Thank you, Neal. We'll turn it over to Harry. The thoughts on this podcast series is that we're going to try to dig behind the scenes a little bit from each of our programs, have each of the panelists talk a little bit about the league in general. And Harry, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Hey, I wanted to ask you, Neal, early on, right? You guys are brand new in the Missouri Valley Conference. Just first impressions that you guys have of the Valley itself and the opponents you've played and the league.
The first thing that jumped out at me was the officiating and how here in the Missouri Valley kind of let you play. A lot of times in the Ohio Valley Conference, we'd shoot a lot more free throws. They wouldn't allow as much physicality inside, but they're doing that. I like it. That's the brand of basketball that I love. The other thing is that we've yet to run into any team that doesn't defend amazingly. And it just continues to be one after another. You take a look at Bradley last night. We knew that if you're probably not going to get to 70 in that kind of game. And if you did, it would certainly be an outlier. But that's been my impressions, has been that, plus every team has at least one or two guys that are stars or potential kind of player of the year candidates with Mast, with Damask, with Cricky. And I mean, it just goes on and on. Or somebody's like, my goodness, this is a team that is, maybe in the other league would be contending for a championship. And in this one, I mean, there is no circled 3, 4, 5, 6 wins when the schedule comes out because there aren't any. This is just it's a fun league. I've really enjoyed it so far.
And then, Jim, the Redbirds have played Murray and Belmont. Your impressions of the new teams to the league?
Yeah, I saw Murray a couple times earlier when ISU would play them in non-conference games. And I saw Illinois State had a series with Belmont about 4 or 5 years ago. I think Murray and Belmont are just perfect fits for the league. They just kind of epitomize, I think, what the Missouri Valley is kind of all about. And like Neal said, maybe in the OVC, there was a little bit more of a offensive theme to it. But from what I've saw, Belmont Illinois State game was actually a pretty offensive game. The game with Murray was kind of a grinded out game. Neal will attest to that. But I think they're perfect fits. And UIC, the other Valley newcomer, Illinois State's also played them. And they have Luke Yaklich as their coach. So he's a Valley guy. So he kind of knew a little bit what it would feel like. And maybe he had a better feel of it than the Murray and the Belmont people. You hear about it, but until you feel it during the game. But Luke definitely has the feel of the Valley being a defensive league, and you just have to grind out possessions. That's the way the league is played, and I think all three schools are really great fits for the league.
And Jim, I'll stay with you for just a minute. Both of you guys have new coaches, although Neal's is a new old coach. But tell fans that maybe haven't caught up with Illinois State yet, just give us a little Ryan Peden insight. Tell us about the new coach there at Illinois State. Yeah,
Ryan, when he was at Ohio State, he was kind of like their offensive coordinator. That's kind of his side of the ball that he focused on at Ohio State. Obviously, when you're a head coach, you focus on all angles. So he's trying to kind of implement his offense here at Illinois State. It's kind of been up and down a little bit. It seemed like they had it going for a little bit, and then they kind of run into the league. And like we said, it's a defensive league, and teams aren't going to let you have easy points in the league, maybe like you got in some of the non-conference games. So it's been kind of a start and stop a little bit for the Redbirds. You can never really judge a new coach in his first year. It kind of takes 2 or 3 years to kind of see what everything's all about.
And who has more followers on social media, Max Peden or Jim Benson?
I have more than that kid. I'm telling you that right now.
For people that don't know, the head coach's son, Max, I think he's 10 or something, is a social media crazy guy. He's got his own podcast, and he's an amazing young man. Neal, tell us a little bit about Steve Prohm. I mean, he was with you guys for a while, and then he went off to Iowa State, now is back. And tell the people that don't yet know a ton about Steve Prohm a little bit about him.
Well, his start was amazing because, brutally honest, whenever Steve was first hired, there was a lot of people around that really weren't happy. You have a guy with a storied program that has no head coaching experience. So I think Coach Kennedy told him, Steve, look, they're not going to give you any sort of leeway here. You're going to have to win out of the gate. And he says, well, how many will I need to win out of the gate? And I guess Billy said, I don't know. So he wins his first 23. Somewhere around probably 10 or 12 in a row, those questions were set aside. Steve is a terrific coach. He coached very well that season, had a great tenure that helped him get the job at Iowa State. But the thing that's changed coming into round 2 here at Murray State is he's a much more relaxed guy. When he was here, he toward the end of his tenure, he had a girlfriend named Katie. Now that's his wife. They have 4 children. He's a family man. Last night we were doing the post-game interview. His kids were swarming him, and he's sort of soaking it in now. The other night when they lost to Southern Illinois, he wasn't beside himself. That's different than the Steve Prohm before. I mean, he took them very, very hard, lingered on them for a while. Now it's move on to the next game. So I see a much more mature coach. It's obvious that over his 10-year career, he's really learned a lot, picked up many things in the Big 12 conference, which is a very unforgiving conference, kind of like this one in that way. I mean, you got to move on to the next game. You can't just whine about it too much. You got to pick yourself up and get on to the next one. That's been the big difference. But he's a treasure to work with, a very nice guy, great personality, and has a terrific sense of humor, loves to kid around, and I really enjoy working with him.
Mike was talking about Arch Madness, Neal, and you guys haven't experienced that, but you had great success. The Racer program did at the OVC tournament in Evansville, and your fans travel tremendously well. What are your thoughts about what it's going to look like coming to St. Louis in March with maybe several thousand Racer fans in tow and looking forward into that tournament?
I think we're really excited about that. Many fans, they loved going to Evansville. That was a blast. It's very easy to get to from Murray. The arena is easy to get to. There's a lot of hotels near the arena, great downtown atmosphere. But then I've talked to people that have been to Arch Madness, and it said, just kind of multiply that times about 2 or 3. At Evansville, you hope, gosh, maybe we can have 8,000 or 9,000 fans at a semifinals or championship game. And you take a look at some of the attendance figures from the Missouri Valley when you're looking at 12,000, 15,000. I think it's going to be terrific. Fans will love that too. St. Louis, many of our fans are familiar with that. We have a lot of Cardinal fans in our area, so they go up there to watch Cardinal games. They know the hotel layout. Maybe not as familiar with where the arena is, but they'll find out soon enough. And I don't believe you'll see much of a drop off, if any at all, in terms of the fan turnout. It depends on how long, of course, the Racers are in the thing, because they could play very early in the tournament, depending on how they're seeded. But at least by later in the week, I think you'll certainly get a tremendous turnout if the Racers can get to the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or maybe even the Sunday game.
And Jim, the Redbird fans at times have been big boosters of the tournament. And when the team struggles, it makes it a little bit harder. But I guess 8 of the 12 teams will be playing on Thursday now. And how do you think that affects Arch Madness and fans, not fans coming, but the thoughts that fans have from Bloomington?
Boy, I haven't really thought about that, Harry, but I think it will make a Thursday. We've seen, I've seen a lot of Thursday games here the last couple of years, and the crowds are a little bit sparse. I think there will be more of a turnout because you have, you can go 4 days like you do on Friday. I think that'll help the attendance, especially on Thursday. Nobody wants to be playing on Thursday. They'd rather go and watch the 4 games on Thursday, without their team playing, obviously. But I think the 4 games on Thursday, I think that's going to be kind of a cool deal. I'm really kind of looking forward to that. I always thought Friday was the best day to, if you're just going to one day to see the tournament. Friday was the day because you got to see 8 teams, and now you get to see 8 teams on Thursday also. So I think it should be a good deal for the Valley, and I think more fans will kind of go down there if you can go to 2 sessions, grab a bite to eat between the sessions. It should be interesting.
So Jim, I wanted to ask you, I've only been to Bloomington a time or two. So fans from the region or around, somewhere else, maybe some UIC folks coming down or whatever, where is somewhere that people should go to, I don't know, get something to eat when they're in town to see the Redbirds play? Yeah,
well, Bloomington Normal is like the chain restaurant capital of the world. So if you want to eat, I go to the other towns and they have their kind of nice little places that are unique to their. I would say the one in Bloomington Normal it's Luca Grill. It's in downtown Bloomington. It's probably only about 3 or 4 miles from the arena on Main Street. It's an old time Italian restaurant. I think it was open in the 30s or something like that, and the decor inside is pretty similar to when it opened. It's a cool place. They have really great pizza and all that, good pasta dishes and all that. That's the place to eat when you come to Bloomington Normal.
And Neal, same question for people coming to Murray, Kentucky from Southern Illinois or wherever they might be coming. Where are the local eateries that people should make sure they see or go to because it's a Murray thing?
Well, the Big Apple Grill and Bars, where we host our coaches show, that's a place that you certainly need to seek out. Little note here: it used to be located across the border in Tennessee because it's only been about the past 15 years that Murray has been wet. So that was the place to go south, as they said. Anyhow, once Murray went wet, they relocated here, and it's been a staple. Even though people from all around, they knew all about the apple. So once they moved here, it was instant. Also, the Keg, if you like Cajun food, seafood, they're the place to go. I think those would be the 2 that I would recommend. At least those are the 2 that I go to most often.
Neal, I do want to take you back to last spring. You and I were both where was the regional that we were in? I forget. Was that Indianapolis?
Yes, it was.
And so you were there announcing games, and I was there just covering games. The Racers are in the NCAA tournament. They win a game, and then they play that stinking St. Peter's team. And but talk about the highs, the lows that go into a run like that. You guys had such a great season, and now you're in the NCAA tournament and really should have won that game against St. Peter's. And all of a sudden you're looking at a Sweet 16 berth, the highs, the lows, the emotions, the elation, and the depression.
Well, the interesting thing, we've had 3 31-win seasons since I've been doing the games, and last year was one of them. But how they just creep up on you. And that one, we're at a tournament in Florida, lost East Tennessee, looked horrible. If you told me we'd win 20 games, I'd go, this team's not winning 20 games. They'll be lucky if they don't have to play on the first night of the OVC tournament. However, they managed to win, put things together, started making shots. And I think the key to that team, we knew Tevin Brown, he was going to be Tevin Brown, but it was KJ Williams who suddenly decided he was going to be a player of the year candidate, ended up being the OVC player of the year. That helped take the team on the run. They won virtually any must-win game they had to win. Morehead State, they go there and win a game that we thought would be very difficult to pull it out. They did. And Belmont has been our nemesis over the past few years. They've beaten the Racers a couple of times in OVC tournaments. We just really didn't have their number. Never beaten them in Nashville. We expected a close game. The Racers, I think, built almost a 30-point lead, won by 22. Then you come back home, figure they're going to be laying low for us. It was senior night, and the Racers, I think, won by about 30 points. So you had those highs, but the NCAA tournament was crazy because you see Kentucky get upset by St. Peter's, and you're thinking, hey, we beat San Francisco. It's a bracket buster game to go to the Sweet 16. The Racers were able to do that. However, in that game, Carter Collins sprained his ankle. Turned out he was unavailable. We do the same starting lineup every game, but against St. Peter's, we didn't use that. That kind of messed up our rotation. And credit to St. Peter's, though. They were a heck of a team and proved they were no fluke when they went on to beat Purdue. But the highs were certainly high. There just weren't really that many lows. Anxious moments, yes, but most every time the Racers were able to pull it out.
That press conference after the game was like a funeral. I mean, it was just terrible. Hey, Jim, you and I have been in trouble a couple of times together, and I want to take you back. We had a press conference, one of those preseason Valley media things, and we're looking at the voting, and everybody, it was a 100% vote for somebody to be in first place, except Illinois State got one vote. And so you and I sat down with Dan Muller, and one of us asked Dan, so we guess you're the one that voted for Illinois State. We were joking. And of course he said, well, yeah, that was me. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, it was during the high points of the Illinois State, Wichita State hated rivalry, let's say. And it was funny, Harry. I remember that day, people were coming up to me and saying, did you vote for Illinois State? And I'm like, no, I didn't vote for them. And so you and I kind of sat down with Dan, and I think I threw it out as, oh, so you voted for yourself, huh? And he said, yeah, we did. I did. He said, I think we have the best team. And it kind of created obviously it created a big furor in Wichita. And, you know, that was bulletin board material for Greg Marshall. He didn't need too much to get bulletin board material, but that gave it to him for sure. So yeah, that was kind of a funny moment there. You and I were the first two on it, Harry. So we tweeted that out right away. I know.
And then I think it was the next year, perhaps, or the year before that, we're talking to Barry Hinson, and it was the whole Deontay Hawkins kind of, he had transferred and blah, blah, blah. And there was controversy, but not controversy. And Barry Hinson kind of pulls us aside and says, hey, ask me a question about that. And the next thing you know, we have controversy at the conference, media day again, and Jim Benson's in the middle of it again. I think you're the disturber of the league.
Well, you're right next to me. You're my right-hand man. So I'm saying you're the guy, but yeah, that was kind of a funny one too. And of course that involves Wichita State too. So everything seemed to revolve around Wichita State at that time. But yeah, you and I get in trouble sometimes, Harry, but we've been good boys here the last couple of years.
So Jim, take us a little bit before we break up. Tell us a little bit about some of the makeup, a couple of key players from Illinois State, because some of the Valley fans don't know the Redbird team very well just yet. An 8th different starting lineup last night for Ryan Peden's team. They're trying to find that chemistry. Just give us a little bit about what you see from the Redbirds, and then we're going to ask Neal the same thing.
Yeah, Peden, Ryan had 6 guys who stayed with the team after the coaching change in the spring, and he brought in 6 newcomers. Some of the real key guys, Darius Burford, he's a 6-foot guard. They started him off at the point. He kind of felt a little out of place there. He played more of the off guard at Elon, so they put him to the off, the two guard. Last night he had 22 points. He just kind of is a good slasher. He's not very big, but he's tough, and he's going to be one of the guys going forward. And the guy I thought was going to be the real key guy for them coming into the year was Seneca Knight, 6'6", about 225 wing. There's not a lot of guys that size in the Valley. He's had an up and down season. They didn't start him last night. He's had a lot of stops in his career. At San Jose one year, he averaged 19 points a game. So I think they need a little more production out of him. But those are kind of the 2 big guys. Luke Kazupke, a guy you guys know in St. Louis. I can't even remember the name of the high school he played at.
Chaminade.
Chaminade, thank you. Which has a great history, obviously. Tatum played there, and a couple other guys. He's the 4th leading scorer in their history behind 3 NBA guys. Luke's been kind of a guy. He started his first game last night. He's come off the bench. He's just a gritty kind of guy, 6'5" wing, plays great defense, can shoot it a little bit. And they need a little bit more out of him too. They just need the guys to kind of raise their level a little bit. Like I said, I thought in mid-December they really had it kind of going a little bit. They've kind of regressed a little bit, and we'll kind of see where they go from here.
Neal, I know Jamari Smith was sick last night, and yet, Neal, the Racers come up with a big win. Tell us, you guys have a brand new roster other than DJ Burns. Tell Valley fans a little bit about your squad.
Yeah, and even DJ, he entered the portal, so he had to be re-recruited. So, but at least he was familiar. He could show guys where the bathroom was, where the locker room was. Maybe so. At least they had somebody to show him that. Excuse me. But other than Rod Thomas, our walk-on, it is an entire new roster. And as expected, we thought it would take a while for this team to gel. They had to open at St. Louis. That wasn't pretty. You could tell this team wasn't ready for that level of competition. But then, they go to their tournament at Myrtle Beach, take on Texas A&M. We figured that would be a very difficult game, pick up a win against a then-ranked Texas A&M team. But this has been up and downs, just like you would figure with a team that has 12 new players. When you put him together with DJ, I mean, he had no experience playing with them either. And it's been hot and cold. As expected, Rob Perry, I thought, would probably be the team's leading scorer. He has been, but he can be really good at times. He's done better lately, has a tendency to maybe take an ill-advised shot here or there, but has been solid for the most part, can make really big shots. He has been, I think, the leader in terms of that, but DJ's been the glue guy. Even last night, he had the double-double, did a really great job on Mass, helping to hold him to 3 points in that game. Really kind of had him frustrated. I think we'll see a different Mass the next time that we see Bradley, though. But this was really terrific. Jamari also is a scorer we thought he would be, although he had been in a bit of a slump that he snapped out of against Evansville. I think over a 5-game stretch, it averaged only 5.5 a game. So he's just under 14 per game. Jacoby Wood has been a really good point guard, leads the league in assists. However, he's in a 3-point slump. He's missed 13 straight 3-pointers over a multi-game stretch. But where this team, I believe, is really beginning to grow, and that starts probably in the second half against SIU, against Evansville, and then last night against Bradley, that's the bench depth. Justin Morgan at 6'6". I think he's an ideal player for the Valley. He can shoot it. He can defend. Great basketball instincts. That's what I'm seeing across the Valley, at least so far. And the teams that we play, they seem to have multiple guys just like him. Quincy Anderson's coming off the bench and doing well. And Brian Moore, many times we see these JUCO guys, they have that first half of the year, the first semester, where they're kind of getting used to the speed of the game. We talked with Brian after the game last night. He said that was his case. He's starting to get it. He's had double-figure scoring efforts in 2 of his last 4 games. So he is also really starting to get it. And I think that's where this team will have growth. But oh my, they're going to need it as the bulk of the tough teams on this schedule coming up, starting with Drake this Saturday.
Neal, final question before we turn it back over to Mike. Valley people know that Belmont and Murray came from the Ohio Valley Conference, spent a decade battling each other. And you're a broadcaster, so you have respect and all that. But how deep is the hatred between Murray State fans and the Belmont fans?
Well, it's fan hatred. I mean, we don't want anything bad to happen to them, but on the court, we want to beat them as bad as you want to beat anyone else. And a lot of that comes from their success. I mean, they were so good in the conference. Two of our best teams were knocked out in the OVC tournament by Belmont. So those still saying one of them didn't get to go to anywhere. And then one of them were able to at least go to the CIT. So there was at least something in that. But the hated rivalry still was Austin Peay, even to last year. But Belmont was kind of that school. It's like, gosh, we got to get over the hump against these guys. I mean, we'd never even beaten them there, as I'd said earlier, until last season. So it's still a tremendous rivalry. I'm glad that we were both able to come. I think they're really well suited for the Valley. They've had a great history of, especially offense, which is a little different than you see. You know, they're going to be a team that's probably going to be wanting to push it to the 75 to 80 point mark. I'm not sure if that's something they'll adjust to as the years go on, or if that just happens to be their style and they're going to continue to win with that. But they're playing really well right now. But there is that hatred, fan hatred, as I say. Whenever we get the schedule out, when do we play Belmont? We circle those games on the schedule, and I think we'll do that for a long, long time.
Appreciate it, Neal. Mike, tie a bow on it. What final thoughts do you have, Mike?
Well, I now know where to eat at both schools, and I've never been to a restaurant, so I'll definitely circle that and get some pizza there. I will make sure that Jim and Harry do not sit next to each other during the conference tournament or at meetings in the future. And Neal, thank you for bringing up the portal. That really has changed college athletics. The whole landscape is way different, and it affects our league greatly. You know, Missouri State also with almost a complete roster overhaul. But the one thing that you did mention is that everybody's playing better. They're gelling. That's true with Missouri State too. They've won a bunch in a row now. So the conference tournament, when we get to March, it's going to be tremendous. Everybody's going to be playing at their highest level. And then lastly, just a note on our conference tournament tickets. They have been on sale for a while. The best way to get them and sit in your school block is to call your ticket office in your own institution. But we do have single session tickets that will go on sale on January 17th, a week from next Tuesday. Let's go ahead and wrap it up, guys. Thank you very much, Harry, Jim, Neal. Appreciate it. I'll see you all down the road, and looking forward to seeing you for an extended period in St. Louis during the Arch Madness tournament here in St. Louis. Thanks, guys.
Always a pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.